Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 26 of the Ink Pod podcast. Today, we're joined by a second Zach. He's not the only one in the
Hey.
room. We got Zach,
Yeah.
aka the Can of Corn. Thanks for
Up,
joining us, buddy.
Yeah.
What up? Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on the podcast.
That's gonna be a lot of
Oh,
fun.
this is going to be fun.
Hell yeah,
So
always.
I'm sure if anyone's following any form of social media and they're in the screen printing space, they kind of already know you. But we do have a lot of users that aren't in the screen printing space. Maybe they're doing embroidery and they haven't crossed paths yet. So do you mind just talking, a little bit about yourself, how you got into the industry? I know you're involved in a couple different businesses. Day by day looks like, and you got to answer the question because I personally don't know, where does the name Can of Corn come from? So I'm interested myself.
I got you. All right, so what's up, y'all? Thanks for having me. I'm Zach, aka the Can of Corn. Now, I'll tell you where the Can of Corn comes from before we get into who I am and stuff like that. But my last name is Acorn, so my full name is Zach Acorn. And then growing up, people usually call you by your last name as a nickname, and then mine always got abbreviated. So it would be like, instead of Acorn, they just call me Corn. And then as I got older, I've always been into art, but when I got older and dropped out of college, I got into street art and graffiti. So I was always doing like tagging and stuff. So usually people would have like a tag name. So I used Corn. And then after a while, I kind of fell more in love with an artist named Banksy, and he didn't really tag or anything. He was doing more stencils.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, I need a stencil. Like, I'm wasting too much time, and like being a perfectionist and stuff, doing the tagging while like you're waiting for see if the cops were gonna come was kind of stressful. So I wasn't really into that much. So I was always been a huge fan of Johnny Cupcakes, who is also from the Boston area where I'm from. And I
Yeah.
always loved the simplicity of his logo with the cupcake and the crossbones and stuff. So I was like, all right, like, how can I make something like that? And then, I just worked on it for a while, and I was like, well, I spray paint, it's a can. And I was like, corn. And I was already familiar, like growing up playing baseball, with the phrase can of corn. So I started doing research on the phrase and stuff like that. So, I came
What
up
is
with
that
like,
phrase? I've never heard of it.
so the phrase started actually in a grocery store. So basically, can of corn was one of the most popular cans of vegetables and stuff. So they had to stock it up on the top because they had the most space. So they used to knock it off the top. So when they started knocking like cans off the top at the stores and stuff, they used to yell out a can of corn. So you would know that it's falling, so nobody would get hurt or something. And then it's fast forward, it grew in baseball to be an easy pop fly, where it just be whatever. So I looked at it as like, all right, word, that my thing is going to be, I'm going to make like art and anything I do through art like easy for people, and like make it easy for them to understand you can do it. So I came up with a slogan where it fell off the shelf, grew in the field, and lives in the streets. So like now it's kind of crazy. Like fast forward, 11 years, like you see me, I'm all over the place and like trying to just help people make their journey easier in their processes. So that's where the can of corn comes from. And I just happened to, get lucky and come up with a cool logo back in the day that worked. And now I got it,
Sweet.
everything. And then people give me a bunch of corn stuff all the time. So that's where the name comes from. But I'm Zach.
I love it.
I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, and I grew up being obsessed with art, specifically Andy Warhol, and I tried to do the whole architecture thing. Went to 2 years of architecture school, ended up dropping out, and then really dove back into the art and stuff like that. And then I fell in love with Shepherd from Obey, and I always wanted a clothing brand, obviously too, because of Johnny from Johnny Cupcake. And then I ordered my first brand one day after work, and I ordered them through Custom Ink. I was not a fan of the quality of it, and I didn't know anything about Custom Ink at the time, but now I know a bunch, so it makes sense. Which is funny because fast forward years later, I actually helped sell rock equipment to Custom Ink. So crazy how it all comes together. But anyways, I did the whole thing where I got it, and I was like, all right, there's got to be a better way to do this. So I, sure enough, looked up online how to screen print, and then the first thing that came up was, hey, screen printers. And sure enough, it was Ryan Moore. And so
Yep.
I dove in and watched a bunch of Ryan Moore videos. I also watched some Catsfit videos too, and I realized, I was like, holy crap, like I could essentially use the stencils that I'm using for spray painting. I could actually use them to screen print through. So that's actually how I got started in screen printing. Did not think it was going to be this crazy career journey dedicated to screen printing and stuff like that. But it's funny how it all comes together and stuff. So, fast forward 10 years later, I started the whole screen printing business, had a clothing store that was focused around screen printing. And then, a couple of years ago, I ended up getting linked up with, the guy whose first video I watched, Ryan Moore, and now he's a mentor for me. So it's crazy how full circle the story and journey goes. But it's just about, like, I've learned with myself, it's about, and you guys hear me say it all the time, trusting the process and seeing what comes from it. So that's who I am. I'm an artist and print specialist and just doing the thing.
Yeah, and something new that I just learned when we started this podcast is I always thought that Zach was a rock employee because I see him, doing installs, and I see him always at doing May Lab and at the trade shows. You're running the rock presses, so that was news to me that you're an independent contractor. So it's cool to learn that, and you're actually on an install right now, right?
Yeah, so we're doing a shop move and then build out, and then today we finished that yesterday, and then now today we're doing a full training on press, and then we're gonna go do some consulting through the shop and stuff like that to make sure that their workflow is all nice and dialed. But yeah, that's one thing. It's people always find interesting finding out I'm independent, but it's one of those things where being an artist, it was one thing that I really wanted to bring to the industry when I got involved into it, is like to treat myself more of a independent artist or as an athlete. So I really try to compare a lot of the stuff I do to being an athlete and stuff. So when you look at like athletes, professional ones, they have all these sponsors, so I kind of always looked at the companies that I was working with through the industry were more so like sponsors for me versus like being fully committed. I make the joke where I'm like, I'm Switzerland of the industry because like I'll work with all the brands. At the end of the day, like I really like to hold myself accountable for the fact that like what separates you is you, not what equipment you use. Like if you're really good, you should be able to hop on any type of equipment and get a dope ass print or piece.
Awesome.
100%.
And you could do like you could set up presses and take them down and do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so when I got reached out and started talking about the technical side of everything, I was already kind of in the process of looking into buying a rock for our shop and stuff. So it was like perfect timing of everything because it was like, okay, like let's figure out how this can work. But I also have been somebody that like I like to know how things work before I buy them, especially that amount of money. So I had some technical background from being a professional flashlight holder from my dad my whole life. So I was like, all right, we'll probably figure this
Yeah.
out. But I really fell in love with it, as I call it. It's like it's basically I go for screen printer in my opinion. So I'm just building them, but it really honestly, especially once I started getting really good at the rocks and then playing around with the other machines from other companies and stuff like that, like it was crazy how much it increased my printing ability. Like when I started, I'm very big into studying stuff that you do, so I'm always watching my own film or watching other people's film or just studying the industry. One thing I really realized is like for the role that I wanted to create within the industry, I needed to be super multifaceted. So I make the joke, I'm like, I'm the Zach of all trades because Jack couldn't get it done. So like,
Yeah.
meaning like I wanted to understand how everything in the whole printer industry works. So whether it was studying Ryan on how I'm doing sales and marketing and product implement, or it was studying like Danny Gruninger or even my buddy Lee Stewart, like, all right, how do we do videos or how to show the technique or how do we get really good at printing, to studying like Buck Primo and Buck Primo from Rock and Cam from M&R and like a lot of the older dudes too, and being like, all right, how do they understand how this all comes together? And then just picking up and learning from as much of the people in the industry I can. So when I call myself a print specialist, like I really mean it. It's not like I can just do this one thing. It's like I can go in and I can do it from start to finish.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. And you're comfortable training and doing installs on like R and that kind of stuff as well, MHMs. Like you're not just
I'm getting
you
a
know,
little more comfortable with the M&Rs. I've been playing around a lot with mine that we have. It's a 94, which is way older. It's Gauntlet, but it's really nice because it's teaching me all the basics and stuff of everything, which is really cool. I've done some sportsmen, and then I actually took on a striker, which was probably the hardest thing I freaking have ever
yeah,
done, and I can't say it was my best install by any means. So, but I have attempted those. I played around with the other machines too a little. But I'm waiting for Tony, my guy Tony Palmer, to give me that call to come play around with an MHM or something like that. But I mean, I tell people straight up, it comes down to like what you can do with the machine more than what type of machine it is. But I will say, like, after getting my hands in a lot of the machines and stuff, it's crazy how simple and well put together rocks are. Like, so that's why I've definitely found myself leaning towards those more, is because I really love the simplicity, and with the training aspect that I do a lot of and stuff with training people on printing and efficiency and stuff. It's like it's really tough to beat the rock when it comes to how easy it is to train people. I make the joke, I'm like, if you played a video game before, you're gonna be able to run this rock, like, so
Yeah.
it's really cool.
Cool.
I think all companies are getting simpler and simpler, right? I think M&R came out with like a bunch of new machines with like all the big boards are coming out. MHM has a big board now. Like everything's textile,
Yeah.
like touch screen. So I think they're all getting better, and it's a lot easier to train people compared to like what it was maybe 15, 20 years ago, where everything was like buttons. You couldn't know
Mhm.
which way the machine was going to run unless you really had training on it. Now it's
Yeah.
like everything's like a touch screen. You see everything there. You light up a flash. Like they're
Yeah.
all pretty similar,
Yeah.
and
It's
it's
getting
just
to
like what color do you want?
exactly. I was just gonna say that. I was having a conversation with Mr. Riley Hopkins not too long ago at the Ryanet reunion, and like I was joking with him. I'm like, it's funny because like you were just saying, Sean, it's like in a few years, like they're all gonna be pretty much doing exactly the same thing. It's just gonna be like, what color looks better in your shop, and then you're gonna have all these companies being like, well, this is our main color, but we'll customize it for you. So
Hmm.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
that's why
Yeah, and like again, I think that's a big aspect, and as well as like where can you get it serviced? Like where can you get support from, right? So I think that's the second biggest thing you have to look at because they're all great machines, right? So like for us at first when I started the business, I really wanted MHMs,
yeah.
but I contacted the team, I contacted people over there, and I never got a response. So I went to Long Beach and I saw like the rocks, and I thought they looked cool and everything, and right away we got a response. We got a quote like the next week. And I didn't know Zach. I didn't know like the M&R brand before that because I was just looking at like the flimsy machines. Like I wanted something different, right? So I looked at the other guys, but that's why I went with Rock back in the day.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And I'll tell
that's
people that
I
straight
think
up.
they're all
They'll be like, why is The Rock so much more? And I'll be like, well, there's a few reasons, name the technical aspect, but I'm like, the biggest reason is because you're paying for the community that you get and like the team you get of Rock, and you're also paying for that 3-year warranty. Like, I really stand by the fact that I think Rock has, like, if not the best, one of the best warranties in the industry. Where it's like, we're going to cover you for 3 years as long as you're staying within all the guidelines. And then for the most part, we have somebody that's ready on call to try to work through any troubleshooting issues that you have. And if they can't figure out on that phone within like the first day of troubleshooting, or if not sooner, they know we're going to send somebody out there and we're going to have somebody in your shop like very fast, within days. So I mean, with something with like the industry that we work in where everything's really time based and stuff, it's like you really got to take that into consideration when you're buying equipment, especially new equipment. And yeah.
and I think that you develop your role in the industry, not just as a print specialist, like you were saying, but you also have your artist side, right? So you go into the shops and you do installs at so many different types of businesses, right? Niche market. What's your favorite type of shop to go into and do an install because you know that you can talk to the guys that's similar to you? Like, is it the large retail company? Is it the more sporty side? Or is it really just the company that does B2B, simple, or contract printing? Like, what's your favorite print shop to go into and just chat?
It's crazy you asked that, John. I was really thinking about that last night because the shop I'm at now, I really, I love them. Every shop I go to, I consider it like family by the time I leave. And I try to make myself like as part of the team while I'm there. It's crazy because I've been in a lot of like dope shops, a lot of NDA signs where I could be like, this is what was done, but I can't. So, but it's crazy because the more I think about it, is like I love going into those big shops because it gives me that like feeling like, all right, it's all working. Like you're in these positions that you wanted to be in and stuff. But it's also one of those things where I love the smaller shops and the shops that are growing because it's one of those things where like most humans or most of us, we have goals and what we want to accomplish in life. And like, you know, the general goal that most people like to say we all want to do is we all want to leave our mark and change the world, right? But like that's such a big thing. But when you break it down into smaller aspects of it, you know, these smaller shops, I really feel that it gives me the opportunity to do that, where I know that like, okay, I'm not only just like coming in there and setting them for success for like the shop, but it's like a lot of the smaller shops, that's their livelihood, you know? So I really am into
Yeah.
that, where it's like, okay, I know I'm setting you up for not only for the shop to work and the process to work, which I'm good at, it's like I'm also setting you up so you can live a better life, you know? So I've really found that like I like those smaller shops a lot because I know I'm doing it now. I've had situations where big shops where I've made suggestions or done floor plans and it was a huge, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars benefit for them, and that's really cool too. But it's not life changing to the employees or anything like that. So it gives you like satisfaction, but it's not like the holy shit. Like I know that they're gonna have a lot better time once I leave, and things are gonna go smoothly. And who knows, like they'll have me back sooner, you know, because they understood that immediate gain and benefit from it. So they're calling me up to come back for more training after they've been at it, or more calls for consulting, whether it's virtual or in person, just because they know it's gonna leave a bigger impact. So it's a great question, though.
I resonate with that for sure. Like I think the podcast, right, it's a great example of that. Like every week we get maybe with YouTube podcast, like YouTube, Spotify, and Amazon, we get roughly 700 to 1,000 listens, right? And when you look at it, it's like, oh, it's not that much into the spec of like the world, but if you take 1,000 people, you put them in a classroom or you just put them in a shop and you talk to them, it's a shit ton of people, right?
Yeah,
So it's like we make our impact that way, and I think like seeing it seeing it evolve with time is motivating too. And then you get people write to you, hey man, you helped me out with that. I really like your podcast. So it definitely resonates with me for sure, 100%, man.
hell yeah, and like
Yeah.
making those connections too, or whether it's on the big scale or smaller scale, I feel like it's easier to make the connections on the smaller scale. You know, like even yesterday, like one of the dudes that works at this shop was showing me some of his work, and I was like, oh dude, this is super cool. Like he has his own clothing brand on the side. I'm like, bro, this reminds me of my homie that I just got off the floor with, Austin from Pizza. And he's like, bro, Austin's like he's one of my favorite artists of all time. And I'm like, no way, bro. I'm like, yeah, that's the homie. I was like, so I sent him a DM and I was like, yo, bro, just want to let you know, like, your impact is making its way all the way to Alaska. You're a real mother effort, you know, like, I love you for that.
Yeah.
He's like, bro, that made my day. Let me know his contact information. You know, so it's just cool, like, on the smaller scale that you
It's
can put
awesome.
all that together. Whereas, like, on the bigger scale, you'll talk to some people, they don't, unless it's like, you're talking about heroes, they don't really care.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I
Yeah.
agree.
I mean, and like for us, I mean, I've been using it as an educational tool. Like I had a client that reached out to me 2 days ago. He's not in this industry at all. You know, he actually just left here this morning, and he was looking at. He's in the tactical space, and he wants to start decorating here. And you know, he had heard about you know a buddy of his who has a business in the States bought GTX Pro B from Hirsch. So he wanted to learn about that, and I said, "Hey man, like come in for a consultation, but like check out these podcasts." And he's like, I watched episode 1, I watched episode 2, I watched episode 3, and like 6 by yesterday. He watched 4 episodes last night. And he just came in with, like, he didn't know what DTF was. And he knew everything about DTF and
That's it.
DTG and the direct to embroidery. And like, instead of me like regurgitating there and missing so much information, I could just be like, hey, check this out. Because we try and make this as educational as possible, right? And he
Yeah.
just brought so much out of it. And he was comfortable. He's like, dude, I feel like I know you already. He's like, I know you, I know Sean. You know what I mean? So it was kind of really cool. But yeah, I mean, we're enjoying it. At the end of the day, you know, we do this to have fun. We do it to try and like communicate, obviously, to our audience, some, you know, what's new in the industry, what's going on, and my suppliers like coming on here and talking about products. So yeah, it's been a blast.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, we missed a couple weeks here and there, but we're on a roll now, so
It's
we got to
hey,
keep
as
it up.
long as you're staying with it, man, that's all that matters. But the other cool thing that you brought up, like that you like what you were talking about, Zach, like brings into play too, which I think is really big, is and like I've found myself like trying to get better at recognizing it too, is like everybody learns differently. And like so with that I've understood too is like everybody relates to other people differently, you know. So like that was one thing that when I got into like self education after dropping out of college, I realized that like I had to figure out like who can I hear, or like who do I relate with the most when I'm learning shit. So like I've even learned that with the screen printing side of things or the garment industry is like, through podcasts and stuff, I'm learning or hearing through people. I'm like, all right, this person would be really good for this person because they talk the same and they're similar. So let me dish them off to there. As much as I'd like to help everybody, it's like I'm understanding too is like, they're probably better off listening to that podcast, like you were saying, Zach, because it's like it's going to click with them better than if I sit there and talk to them or the person next to me or whatever the case is.
100%. No, we
And
all we all we all catch different things at a different time, and I think our way of understanding things is just different, right? So especially like for me, I can understand numbers, but my brother's insane at numbers, right? I'm more of the creative side. I like to go and be artistic and be
Yeah,
creative, make videos and make
hell yeah,
people laugh and make people dream, right? That's me.
yeah,
I can understand the numbers, but I don't want to. That's not my thing. So I think everybody
yeah.
has their own
And
thing.
And even when people buy, I mean, like for example, I have some clients. I had a client that literally just like sent me an email and be like, "Hey Zach, I'm ready to buy the Sati LTS." You know what I mean? It's like I'm like, "Oh, okay. Do I need to tell you anything about it?" He's like, "No, just send it." You know what I mean? It's like sign return, and it's like it's because some customers like to spend a lot of time educating themselves.
yeah,
Reading through if it's ink, the technical data sheet or whatever, they like to self-educate. Whereas some like it for it to be explained, or some want to talk to a human being. So it's important to be able to figure out, like you said, how people learn and how to address the questions or concerns they have, and make sure that they get the information they need to be happy with the purchase, regardless of what it takes to get them there. So yeah, it all works, man. It's the whole podcast thing is a new thing, but it's the future of marketing and transfer of knowledge, right? I mean, I
yeah.
just don't know of a better way. And instead of just driving in the car and listening to music, just flip on this and you can
Podcast,
learn.
baby.
And I got some clients that like religiously they listen to every single episode, and they're like, man, it's like sometimes I'm not even, I'm a screen printer, I do DTG, I don't do embroidery, but I'm like, I outsource for embroidery, and now I could ask for this, right? So if you're in this space, it's just interesting. And my sister, she listens to this podcast, and her brother, my brother-in-law, her husband, he's the head technician for Canada for Cornete. But
Hell
besides that, she's not in the industry, you know what I mean? But she enjoys it too. So
yeah.
yeah, it's nice to hear that. So Zach, to my understanding, you also have your own print shop and studio, right? Do you want to just chat about, what you got going on there? Because it
Yeah,
seems like you're
so
always on the go,
I
and
started the
first off, how do you run a print shop without being there, right? I mean, that's always like everyone's dream. Like, I want to own a screen print shop, but I don't want to
yeah.
be there. So, like, how did you manage to pull that off?
It's not easy, I'll tell you that much, and I'm still learning every day. I had all the stuff, to be honest with you, built before I started traveling, so I had never left. I had this block where I'm at in Massachusetts and Boston where it's like, I literally, at one point, I had the 15,000 square foot warehouse. In front of that was my clothing store. And then above that, I had my apartment, which I still have and stuff. So it was like, just like a little neighborhood of can of corn and self-made that I had going on. And we
Yeah.
had a team and all that stuff already existing. So I kind of was like, at the end of COVID, it got to the point where I'm like, all right, you never travel, I want to at least travel once a month to see what that's like. And then sure enough, I got linked up with Ryan, Maylab, and then Rock. And, I went from never traveling to within 2 years, I was only home like a little over like between 60 and 90 days in 2 years. So it's like,
Wow.
it was a crazy transition. And a lot of things had to change, like I had the Gym for Artists, which was a huge company that we built within that 15,000 square foot building. And like, it got to a point where that was very hard to grow and manage with everything with me going. So we thought it was better to shut that down for the time being so we could really develop it the way it needs to and, relaunch it in a better location. And then like even the clothing store, we closed that down last November, just because it got to the point where it's like, okay, well now we're in a modern world where if you really want to sell stuff, you can sell it online. And because I wasn't there, we didn't have as many people coming through the door. So basically, at one point, I was just paying to have people sit in the store. Luckily, we did have some of the production on the manual side because we were just manual until probably like 6 months ago. So we would have the manual in the store and stuff. But, for the most part, we just did that. And then it got to a point where I was like, all right, we're going to close this down, but I'm going to keep 5,000 square feet in the original warehouse that we started with and built a gym for artisan. And I was like, all right, we're going to rebuild this to be like the art and print studio. So we went on that voyage. We started going down that path. You know, we got the first auto that was I got for free, which was a blessing from somebody that we sold rock press to. So I got a 94 Gauntlet, and we went and picked that up. That was the first auto that we got, which is still crazy to me because it runs off a 110, so I can literally plug that in any outlet in my house or a warehouse and it works. And then
Crazy.
yeah, and then so we'd have that, and then I'm obsessed with manual printing, even though I'm always on auto. So I think currently we have 9 manual presses, which they all get used except for one, because it's in pieces. But for the most part, we use all of them still for some type of applique, whether it's
Wow.
artistic or garment. And then recently, a couple weeks before the throwdown, we finally went ahead and got our first rock press. So we have that, but the goal was to basically build out the ultimate, studio for artistic things for screen printing, and then also for the auto production. But we wanted to make it too with all the videos that I had been doing over the years, the past few years and stuff. I really wanted it to be like the ultimate studio too, especially like getting really close with Lee and stuff. You go see his facilities and production, you're like, all right, I need to step my game up. So I was like, all right, I need certain
Yeah, it's
things.
so
So like,
clean.
yeah, so like we have in our facility, we have like the whole auto side, which it has been dubbed the auto zone, which is hilarious because of the company. And then we have like the manual
Auto zone.
side. Yeah, we have like a photography area side, and then we have a recording studio in there also. So the recording studio, which is something we've had dating back all the way to the beginning, but instead of using it more so for music recording, we're using it specifically for like voiceovers and video editing now and stuff like that. So that's where we're at. And then recently partnered with a few of my buddies throughout the industry, but the main one would be Omar Silva Ortiz he was originally over at 12 ounce when we partnered up. So he
Hmm.
left Montana at 12 ounce, which, it was crazy to think that you'd want to leave that amazing facility to come and work on this crazy project that we're working on. But with building the studio out, and then obviously with some of the other projects we're working on, whether it's the Print Plugs project or the Print Masters Throwdown, which we recently just started, we definitely saw our goals and our visions with our careers line up. So we made that partnership, and then we've been working with a couple of my other buddies in the industry with partnerships and stuff like that to really build it up. So we have that shop aspect, and then another thing that we're trying with the shop is we're doing 100% commission based business shop. So that means that even the people that do production get commission based on the production, so that it's not really on me anymore to gauge how you're being efficient with your time. Just know that if you run this one job, like, this is the amount of money you can make. Now, if you want that to be spread across 4 or 5 hours, or do you want to make all that money in 1 hour?
That's cool. Yeah.
That's the approach we're going at. So, and it basically allows us to test a lot of things out too when we're developing the Print Plugs program that I mentioned too, which, our goal with that is to create a national directory of contracted printers where you actually bring the printers into your shop for job specifics and run the job at a higher level, so that opposed to contracting it out or losing money because you can't really keep up with the speed that you need to do it at. So,
Cool. Yeah, your
Smart.
strategy with the 100% commission, it's almost like the new age piecework, you know what I mean? So it's instead of getting, paid per piece. I mean, I guess it's still kind of, you're getting paid a commission
it's
per
similar.
piece, right? So it's
Yeah.
almost
Similar
the
to
same
that.
thing.
Yeah.
But
It's
but
similar.
commission wise, if you're selling that shirt for more, there's a higher commission percentage, right? So that's the difference. You're not making the same whatever 5 cent per shirt or whatever the case is.
No,
You're
no.
making a bigger piece of the pie, which is cool.
Yeah, it's funny, and like it's one of those things where we witnessed it like a couple of weeks ago. Like, we were redoing some of our airlines and stuff like that. So we were redoing our airlines in the shop, and sorry about the noise. They're still building the shop, so I hope you can still hear me okay. But
That's good.
basically, we were redoing all our airlines, and we got a newer regular filler for all the airlines. So we're redoing everything and stuff like that. So the presses were down for a day, and Omar had to rip like it was a 2-color front, pretty decent size, but he had to do that on 100 shirts. So like he took his time and he did it on like one of the manual presses, and it took like a decent amount of time, as you could expect, right? And we were joking because we were having a review and meeting afterwards, and I was like, "Damn, man, imagine if you just waited on the autos on that, you would have made all that money in an hour." Like across all this time. So it's funny because we're seeing like the different things, but it also is like I'm a big believer in like it was one thing that was hard for me to understand when I came into the industry was that not everything is based on how well you can perform, and that was something that I was kind of like against, coming from the athletic and athlete side, where it's like, all right, it's competitive, but also too is like you're rewarded by how good you perform. So that was one thing that I always kind of looked at as like, I wish there was a way we could incorporate that into our industry. And so we're trying out these different things where it's like, okay, with the commission aspect, hey, if you want to be that good, it's on you. But if you want to damage a lot of shirts and stuff like that, that's on you too, because that's going to come out of what you're getting paid, or it's going to come out of your overall makings through that week if it's a significant damage. So, but really putting it back on everybody that's involved in the process, being like, you need to perform at your best, otherwise it's going to come from you. It's not going to come from the shop owner anymore.
Yeah, that's a
I
really
like it.
cool
And is it
idea.
in every aspect of the shop too,
For the most part, so
or just for the printers?
it's printers and sales right now, and sales and fulfillment fall under the same thing. So I actually have a couple remote salespeople right now. Two of them are from the industry, and then one of them just has a really big sales background. So he used to sell for like parts to like Boeing planes and stuff like that. So that's Gabe, but like he's been really good too, because sometimes you need somebody that doesn't have that print background to really just come in and be like, we're going to grow sales and we're going to make sure customer service is on point, without having like all the print process in their head. They're just like, this is what it
Yeah.
is. And then we have like different attributes added onto it, where it's like, okay, if you're not going to do the sale, you're just going to do the referral. Okay, you're going to get this amount of commission for this job just for the referral. They're going to get this amount and then this amount. Oh, if you needed an assistant when you ran the job, they'll get this amount. So really trying to dial in the different amounts, because like that's the thing too, is like I always looked at it as like, all right, you could have somebody go in there for one set of screens for 6 screens you need for one job, and it takes them freaking 4 hours to burn the screens properly. As a shop, that really sucks, because we're getting screwed on costs of whatever the consumables were, but we're also paying them by the hour or whatever to do that, or salary. So it's like, like I said, going back to running more of a leaner shop and a tighter shop and performance-based shop, which we're trying to do. We just looked like at it as like, all right, it's going to be all based on your performance, and like if you can bust this out, you're in control of your own time too, because the other thing I've noticed over time is like a lot of us got into it because we were artists in some way, shape, or form, right? And I feel like you lose that artistry, or you get burnt out by not having the freedom in some of these shops. So I look at it as like, I don't
Yeah.
want you to burn out. If you can get your job done, you made your money for the day, and we're all caught up. Do whatever the hell you want with the rest of your time in there, or go home. Like I also don't need you just hanging out in the shop or doing whatever. It's like, we're here to work, and if you're not working, do your own thing. So.
Yeah. So obviously they have no salary or hourly pay, right? It's just pure. So if the business is doing well, everyone's doing well, and it's going to make them want to hustle and find their own clients potentially, and bring in
Well,
their own business too, right? Because everyone benefits off that.
exactly, Zach. And basically, I stole it from two of my really good buddies in the industry, Nick Wood and Lucas Nielsen. They always say, they're big believers in you eat what you kill, and that was kind of the mentality that we wanted to have with our thing, where it's like, all right, you may be a printer, right? And we don't have a lot of jobs coming in this week from our sales team or whatever. Go sell a job, because one, if you can go sell a job, you're going to get paid commission for selling the job and commission for paying like the production of the job, which I also think is something that like I've noticed going through all these shops over the past few years and stuff, is you really don't have a lot of unity with the workers in the shop and the brand or the print shop itself, where the people working in the print shop are referring constantly to the shop. And I think that's one of the things that creates a disconnect. So with doing this commission route, you know, it was one of those things where it actually influences the people within the team, even if they're production, to send more jobs to us because they're going to get paid more versus like you see a lot of people being like, well, you know, I work at this print shop and this person needs some shirts. Maybe I can just figure out how to do it on my own and make some extra cash on the side. And that's when you see things get sloppy or messy or people get defeated. And instead of doing that, it's just like, no, like we'll give you what you should be getting paid for this. Just let's run it through our process so everything can be kosher. You can still control it, all that stuff. So
It's awesome. I love the idea. It makes me think about so many aspects that we could do and change in the shop. I like it.
hell
I
yeah,
like it a
man.
lot.
And like it goes back into what
And
you and I were talking about, Sean, too, where it's like we recognize because we've all been in it, and same with you, Zach. Like we all recognize the seasons, right? We don't look at it as winter, summer. We look at it as slow or high, fast
Yeah.
paced season. That's how
Yeah.
we look
Yeah.
at
Full
things, right?
throttle.
Yeah. So it's like
100%.
the big reason why I like this model and the big reason why we started print plugs too, so we can get that going for shops, is because the last thing you want to do as a shop is be somebody that has to bring people on salary or hourly, and then you hit that slow season and you got to let them go or something. So instead, you can run a lot tighter team, and then if you need to, contract somebody in for a week or for a job for the print plugs, bring them in there. But then that way you're not like letting people down, because that's a big thing that shop owners feel, or you know, feeling like you can't let them down, so now you run yourself dry as an owner because you just want to make sure they're good, you know. And that's the toughest thing for an owner, is like being one and then talking to all of them that I get to come across and stuff, is like, you know, doesn't matter the size of your shop. You care about the people that work in your shop because you know
100%.
what you're helping them with, you know. So if there's ways and tools that we can create within the industry or models that can make it better for everybody, you know, everybody's going to work better together instead of against. You know, the last thing I like to see when I go into shops is like it's almost like a competition between the team of employees versus the owners, and that never works because you're butting heads, opposed to if we're all working on the same goal, we come together culturally. So
Man.
yeah, yeah.
And talking
It's a
about
good perspective.
tools, you're a big fan of AI. How do you use that on your day to day for like
Yeah.
installs in your shop? Like how do you use it? Like what do you use it for?
Dude, I use it at this point for everything. It's ridiculous. Like it's absolutely ridiculous how much I use it. Um, I got introduced from my buddy Gabe, who does sales and fulfillment for us and customer service. He was actually the one that introduced me. He's like, bro, you need to see this because if anybody is gonna get obsessed with this, it's gonna be you. And he was not wrong. Like, so I literally use it for everything. I have like a bunch of different AI apps on my phone. Like I'm using it for editing emails. I've trained certain AI chats to be assistants, whether it's like a shop assistant for printing or it's like my technical assistant when I'm doing like building different types of presses and stuff. So it's crazy. I mean, it's basically like an assistant that's going to remember everything for you or develop things and like will help you build things out faster, like the Print Masters Throwdown that I had mentioned and stuff. Like if I didn't have AI to help me figure out all the scheduling and planning and building out proposals to send to sponsors and stuff like that, like there's no way we would have been able to bring that together in time, because like from the thought of the throwdown to the like actual throwdown was less than 2 months. And if you know anything about our industry, it
Wow.
usually takes a long time to plan anything in our industry. So the fact that we were able to get everybody together, everybody behind it, and pulling off in less than 2 months was definitely a lot because of AI. And then like I'll use it for
Nice.
stupid shit. Like if, for example, if I need to change my diet up, I'll be like, hey, can you make me a meal plan based on this type of diet for the next few days? It'll make it in like a second, and I'll be like, all right, cool. Now I need you to make me a grocery list for that. Okay, grocery list done. All right, that's done. So I use it a lot for my flights, where I'll send it all these different flight options that I can take, and I'll be like, can you get me the best one that's less on time, fastest, and then going to make the most sense with my schedule? It does all that stuff. But the ones for the screen printing are huge. Like obviously my brother, Matt Marcotte, he did screen printing GPT, which I use a ton, which is super helpful. Like, you know, a lot of the stuff I like to, me and Matt always made the joke that we were like the screen printing GPT. I used to call him Matt GPT before he started this. That's why I love that he started it. But because that's the way our brains work, we just like to know a ton of information. But it's really nice to have those tools to bounce and have conversations. You know, like even when I'm using my technical assistant for like doing these press builds, like it's not necessarily giving me stuff back all the time. It's just logging the information that I'm getting in, saying, and it's telling me, hey, good job, keep it up. You look like you're gonna have a smooth build or a smooth move on this one. And but it's also good when you hit like a roadblock and it's like, all right, I'm dealt with these two situations. Like I'll give you an example. A couple of weeks ago, I was in New York doing a build, and basically the customer broke the whole press down themselves. And I had never seen somebody break a press down like that, so I was very impressed. I learned a few things, but I basically told the assistant that I had made in one of the chats, I was like, "Hey, this is where we're at, right? What's the best way to go about this?" And it like went through all the past scenarios that we've had together, and went through everything we knew, and it was like, all right, Zach, based on like the information that you're providing, based on our past scenarios, it's honestly better for you to take apart what they have right now, put the press back to the way it would be normally before you try to build it and calibrate and stuff versus trying to put it back the way they did it, you know? And like, obviously you could sit there and come up with the idea yourself, but for it to do it in seconds for you and just be like, all right, stop thinking about it, just go do it now, is sick. So, and it's also really nice too, because when you start building those chats together, especially like on press stuff, like I'm really big in, and even before ChatGPT, I was always stressing to people, like, you need to create your Bible. Like, what is your Bible for like in your shop, you know, so that like, um, you come up across something, you already know that you have the answer. You just got to go find it. Because I'm a big believer in anything in the garment industry. You're pretty much going to have made it within the first 6 months to a year of you being in the industry. It's just a matter of the design changes, but the process is the same for those things. So,
Yeah.
so with that, having like the AI aspect to it, as long as you're doing your due diligence with recording everything, you can just ask it the question. It's going to pull it right back up and know. And then like the cool thing is like I use it for marketing, stuff like that. Like it will create, different, all right, this is what you need to be posting based on your thing. Edits, summaries, all different stuff. Like, I'll take a lot of the Google meetings that I'll do with people for consulting or just business and marketing meetings, take the summary of that, toss it into AI, and then it's just going to break it down to main bullet points for me, opposed to having to go through like a whole summary. But it's an amazing tool to save you time. It's not going to make you rich or make you a genius or anything like that, because there's a lot of people that use it for stupid shit. I'll be honest, I used it for a lot of stupid shit when I first started using it. But it's also something that, like, if you really want to use it as a tool and figure out how it can complement what you do, it's phenomenal.
Makes things go by so much quicker. Like even like for this podcast, right? We edited it, and then once it's edited, we take the transcript. I go to ChatGPT. He has all the history of all the podcasts that we had. So I'm like, hey, we're gonna post this on YouTube. What's the best title and description with this transcript, as well as as tags that we can use for
Hell
this
yeah.
podcast, so it reaches the right audience. This podcast might be different from another one, so give me the different tags that's gonna go and select the right audience, and it
Okay.
does it in like 20 seconds, right? And I think I could do a great job, but he knows so much about the industry and where we are that why not use that as a just a reference point, and then I can use that as a reference point and maybe tweak a few things if I'd like to, but it makes things go by so much faster, right? So it's fun to do the podcast and then editing it, like we have the AI now, it edits everything automatically, and then you take that to ChatGPT, use the transcript, put it
It's
in.
awesome.
So I think that's how I use it, right? And we use it for marketing. We use it in shop every single day, like
Yeah.
just to standardize customer service. Hey, can you make a nice reply to like a customer that maybe had a problem, or maybe you just want to like, how should I write this email to where it's simpler to understand?
Yeah.
Like sometimes you want to compare, for example, DTF to screen printing, and you write it all down because it's all in your head, and maybe your sentences are not the best, like the best structure ever, right? So you just take that email, put it in ChatGPT. Hey, can you simplify this so that a
Every
sixth
time.
grader or fifth grader could understand? And
Yeah.
it makes it so much easier to understand. And you learn with that. Like for me right now, when I write emails, I just make them simpler, less words that you don't need. Like,
Yeah.
oh, this is amazing. Like, why do you don't need those words all the time, right? It just makes things longer and less like confusing at the end of the day.
But
So
yeah, and I'm from
yeah, I think
Massachusetts, bro, so I come off as a masshole with a lot of the stuff I'm typing and saying. So I'll just be like, hey, can you make this sound a lot nicer so it doesn't sound like I'm gonna yell at them?
love it. And I love it.
But no, it's an amazing tool. I definitely suggest it for people to get used to it. I mean, it's one of those things where unfortunately, robots are probably going to take over the world. They're going to take all our jobs, right? But if that's why I always say thank you to them, when I'm talking through AI. But
Yeah,
anyways, but it's also one of those things too where it's like,
do the
like,
same.
yeah, you got it. Like any tool, you're just gonna get left in the dust if you don't like try to understand it or try to use it. It's perfect example is bringing it back to the garment industry and screen printing. If you want to stay on a manual press like I tried to do for years and years and years, yeah, like it's good, but you're only gonna get so far versus like you going to that auto side opens way more doors and your path is way bigger.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I
agree.
mean, touching on the point of using tools, if not keeping up to date or staying in the dust. What's your take on DTF? We've been selling it now over 5 years. In the beginning, like all the screen printers were against it, and now like 80% of the sales I have are going to screen printers. And like we're doing a buyback program right now. I have a guy that we literally took back an MHM Auto, and he's scrapping it to get a credit towards a Mamaki. Like literally.
Ah,
It's an older one, but I mean,
yeah,
it's happening, right? We're starting to see more and more of that. He's got two other autos, so he's not leaving himself with nothing. But like,
yeah.
what's your take on this? Like, where do you think DTF fits? Well, do you like it? Do you not like it? Are you
So
one of those guys that's like, I don't like it, but it's necessary?
So I tried to fight DTF for the longest time. I was like, death, as Lee likes to say, death to DTF, and like all of that stuff. And I was really against it. I didn't think it was good quality at all. And I was like, oh, nothing's going to be better than screen printing because I was like very screen print versus like DTG when that came out. And then like obviously like screen printer die, baby, but it's tough because there's been so many advancements and other people have opened my eyes. So like we have Scott from Sure King and he was one of the early ones, in my opinion, that really started pushing the artwork of the DTF and figuring out how to give it that lighter feel, whether it's using the halftones and stuff like that. And then as of recently, Matt's incorporated that into screen printing GPT, where it's going to give you the ability of, hey, should we screen print this job or should we just DTF it? And then on top of that, all right, if you're going to DTF it, put the file into here, and then it's going to make it better printable as a DTF.
My
Um,
God, that's so cool. I
yeah,
think we
so
got to get him on the podcast next,
you
Sean.
do get Matt on the
Yeah.
podcast. All right, I'm calling right now. Be like, bro, you're going on this podcast.
All right.
But anyways, the crazy thing with that is it's just more so once I started to appreciate the different aspects of what it could do and stuff, I also realized that it one helps your business as a screen printer, right? Because at the end of the day, if you can't make money, you aren't going to stay in business. And then the other thing is on top of that, it gives you more time to do dope screen prints. Like you shouldn't be wasting your time doing these little runs or these super complicated runs that you're basically like got to walk on water to make happen and stuff when you can easily just get a DTF and to your door. There's so many amazing companies that offer DTF now. Another one of Matt's companies, the Deco Flow, with ordering freaking, DTFs in your radius of where you're from in less than like, I think it's like 48 hours, something crazy like that. Which I'm sure he'll talk about when he's on the podcast. But anyways, it gives you that ability where it's like, all right, we can knock this out so we can get back to doing things that need to be screen printed, and in the Print Masters Throwdown that was one of the things that we wanted to show is like, if you didn't complete the screen print, you got DTF, but we also showing that comparison where it's like, yeah, if it's a super simple, multicolor or whatever, you can DTF it and come pretty close to making it look it. But if I'm printing a sim process with puff print in it and stuff like that, and I want it to look a certain way, or I'm doing discharge with this, you ain't going to match my print, and that's where it's like more so having the appreciation for it, but having the understanding of where it comes into play. So
And I think that's what I like the most about having all the print methods here at the shop. Like we do embroidery, DTF, DTG, and screen printing, right? And like even today, there's a job that came in like on the POD side, and this customer chose DTG for like a large white vector artwork. I was like,
yeah,
why is he doing that? Like
yeah,
that's DTG. DTG is like for like graphic designs or like something like this, like a vintage oversized print. That's what you want DTG on, right? You don't
yeah.
want something to be bold and vibrant with DTG. Like so, we called the customer, sent him an email. We did a print with DTF, and then we sent it to him. But like, it's just I think the industry doesn't as either I'm all in on this or that. But there's
Yeah.
always an aspect to where like this can be better with this can be better with that. And they all had their strengths, right? I think screen printing, if you play with the types of ink and you know how to use a press,
Yeah.
you can make prints that are unbelievable, right? But then there's people that don't know how to run their press as well, and they make prints that I think would be a lot better with DTF. So I think like there's a learning curve. There's an aspect to it. There's artists like when you talk, I know they can make amazing prints, right? I saw you at Made Lab, like you were there, like, and
Yeah.
we talk the same language. So obviously, when you first see DTF, you're like, man,
Yeah.
I can make prints look so much better than that, and I
Yeah.
agree. But then when I look at prints that people come in the door and they got somewhere else, and it's plastisol that's this thick and it cracks and peels, I'm like, dude, why aren't you just buying DTF machine and just printing it, right?
Yeah.
So that's like I think that's always going to be the case, but it's
Yeah.
just that's my opinion right
We
now.
have we have this issue in the garment decorating industry with everybody. I feel like I don't think anybody. I like to say maybe, even, but even myself, sometimes I'm like, what the hell, you know? But we all have this general under like a belief that we'd like things to come out of the box and be plug and play, and nothing is, you know? And that's why DTG is a good example. DTF is the current example and stuff, where you have so many people that think they're just going to get all these machines or whatever, and they're going to just, or they're just going to send their artwork in and get it printed as a DTF, and it's going to look great. And it's like, no, like it's the same thing, you know, whether in, I feel like DTG and DTF have a lot of similarities in the sense that it's like, okay, are you just printing it and pressing print, or are you going in, you're knocking out where the blacks are going to be? Or, okay, I don't necessarily
Yeah.
need this white underbase here. Or same thing with the DTF, the same thing applies. Or, hey, am I going in and I'm doing this, this, and this? Or, you know, even doing your research, you know, what type of inks am I using? Am I using like a DuPont, or and like that's what they're incorporating? Or, you know, am I working with Omni, or all the different types? Like, who am I using that's going to give me the best result for what I need? You know, do I need hot peel, all this stuff? Like, but it's a matter of people going back to the person. Are you just buying a tool because that's a tool, or are you making yourself the tool? And when you make yourself the tool, that's when it's like you can really push the limits of all these different appliques. Because it's the same thing with embroidery too. Is like I could go on to Amazon right now and I could buy an embroidery machine for like a tenth of the cost that it would cost me to buy a Tajima or a Barradin, right? But it's also like I don't know what I'm doing, you know, and therefore I don't know what
Yeah.
the difference between this tool and this tool, you know. It's like I make the joke is I'll go to Walmart for a bunch of stuff. If I need like a quick tool that's not that big of a deal, yeah, I'll go buy it. But like I know that like all right, the fact that this tool is probably gonna last like 10 uses versus the tool that I buy at Home Depot, which was significantly cheap, more money, is gonna last me a lot longer. It's just it's understanding those different aspects, but getting back to like knowing and understanding nothing's plug and play. You know, like you got to take the time to learn how this works and make adjustments for it and stuff like that. And if you don't want to take the time, which is completely fine too, you got to know you're going to spend the money, and you got to have somebody like myself or, you know, other specialists within the industry come in and be like, this is how you do it, or come to a class and be like, all right, I'm going to learn, this is how we do it, and then bring it back to my shop. You know, like that's the real trade-off. And I like to use myself as the biggest example of that, because like I am self and YouTube taught, you know, like I make the joke Ryan Moore made me because I watched all the freaking videos of him and then watched
Yeah.
everything I could find and then banged my head off a wall for 10 years trying to figure it all out, right? And then I go to like my first class for Made Lab, meet all these people, you know, and next thing you know, it's like I've learned more in the past 3 years than the first like 10 years of doing this, you know, and it's just a matter of, you know, figuring out you need to use people as resources. It's 2024. Don't be scared to ask somebody for advice or questions. Are there limits to it? Yeah, there's certain limits where you should be like, all right, I'm going to use, it goes from asking a simple question to, all right, I need to contract these people to use their brain. But I don't be scared, you know, and like that was one thing that I dove into right away. And obviously I made it harder for myself with the sunglasses with some of these older dudes, but it was like, hey, you guys are the guys. Like you paved the way. Like
Yeah.
as much as you, and like I had a lot of good talks with some of the OGs in the industry at the past Vegas show, where I was just like, hey, like I know I'm wild. I know I don't fit the nature of what we have had in this industry, but just know that like I'm giving you guys your roses more than everybody, because you guys are the ones that did all the hard work to make it so I can do this stuff. and like a lot of the things I'm doing, I bet y'all would have been doing, you just didn't have it because it wasn't in existence yet. So,
Yep.
that's a big part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you're so right about, the whole plug and play aspect. And, it's like you could have, 100 guys with an M&R printing with the exact same ink, the exact same emulsion, the exact same screens, everything, and they're all
Yeah.
going to get massively different results. And the
Oh,
same
yeah.
is thing with with DTG. I mean, like DTG when my business had all the brothers. I mean, everyone at that time was heat pressing it. Everybody was heat pressing it to pre-treat and do the final cure.
Yeah.
And I remember I actually called up one of the old M&R dealers in Canada, and I said, hey, this is what I'm doing. I got to cure DTG shirts. And at the time, like there wasn't a solution that would work. And then, we ended up working with Steve Brown from Brown Harpold and Steve Harpold from Brown. And he had created this synergy system with the electric, the Firefly that would basically adjust to every single
Oh,
garment.
yeah.
And, I bought the first one along with custom ink at the same time, right? So we both got them, and then we brought those in, and like we were able to produce prints with the brother that nobody was able to do. It had no box. Everything was really dialed in. And again, like, and people would ask us, like, oh, like, how are you, banging this off with the brothers and like putting it out? And that was like our secret sauce, right? It was same brother machine, same ink, but we did it differently. And the same thing with DTF. Like, we spend a long time making profiles for our customers, right? So we actually have a new machine
Oh, yeah.
now that we brought in, and we have our film. And for every single color variation, whether it's double CMYK in white or CMYK red, orange, green, blue, and white, or CMYK spot color fluorescence in white, every single printer with every single print head configuration, with every single ink set, with every single resolution, we have to make profiles
Yeah.
for all of those. And it
Oh,
drives my
yeah.
guys crazy because they could spend like 2 weeks making profiles. But all I'm doing is creating the profile for you. I'm not manipulating artwork for you. So I'm just giving you like the foundation. And as long as you
Mhm.
don't change any of the variables I give you, like, hey, we got you on a profile, but like you're still the one that's got to learn how to play with the different amounts of inks depending on the fabric and knockouts and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So luckily, someone on their first day of DTF can get a lot closer to someone who's really good at DTF. Whereas screen printing, your first year or two, you're not even close potentially, right? So
Yeah.
the ability to get up to par with DTF is a lot
Yeah.
easier. The learning curve is a lot slower, but it's still a skill.
Oh,
I
hell yeah.
remember. I forget who it was. There was some DTF at the DTF Expo. They had a contest, right? Like who could they had a DTF print, and it was like some woman or something like that. And they did like a contest who can create the best DTF print. And if every machine was just plug and play, everybody would just download the file and printed
Yeah.
it, and then it would have been a tie. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So clearly, even in the digital world, with something like DTF, there's a lot of variables that come into play, making it really work, right?
Oh, yeah. We saw that, and we just did one in Vegas. We did the first one in Arizona, but we did the DTF competition also, and I was a judge for that. And like, it was crazy because like you're seeing like a bunch of people literally just print the same things, and then like you can immediately take away like 30 of the contestants and be like, all right, you did nothing. Like your colors don't even look the same as the image, right? But then you get down to like 10 people and you're like, all right, these are the people that did like color profiles. They really checked their heads, like how they're printing. They went in and did the artwork different and stuff like that. And then like, I think one of them was like, I think it was like Money Merch or something, won one of the first ones, and like it's funny because you go and check their like YouTube or their Instagram page, and they literally just have videos for days of them dialing in their DTF, and you're like, this is why they won. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not like they just bought the best equipment or whatever the case is. It's like they did that. But like I said, going back, it's just a plug and play mentality. Like I even joke around with people because I think one of the most common questions I get is like, "Hey Zach, what do you like to keep your flood bar and squeegee at? We just want to have it at these settings and leave it at that." And I'm like, well, you could probably do that with your flood bar, but like your squeegee setting really should be altered on every print you're doing. Like, and if you're not doing that, like most of you are probably just overcompensating by putting a ton of pressure on it, which isn't the best
yeah.
print. So
Yeah.
But yeah, the plug and play mentality is just something that, I'd love to, maybe I need to make a shirt, no plug and play or something like that. But if you're going to plug anything, you need to plug the print plugs.
Yeah, that's funny. Actually, you know what? I mean, we do the RP Digital Canada's top screen printer
Oh,
event every January, so we're
Lee
gonna
was
have to announce
so,
that soon.
yeah, Lee
I
was
know it
so
was
upset
heartbroken.
not winning that one. He was upset, man.
Yeah,
He like literally
you
when
know the fun.
we started playing the throwdown, he literally the first thing he brought up was your competition, and he was like, "Well, I'm gonna win," and I was like, "Why are you gonna win?" And he's like, "Because I lost the last competition, and I'm not losing twice in a
Yeah,
row." I was like, "Oh, there's a first for everything, buddy."
yeah, it's funny. So I'm gonna announce that probably first week of November, but I think we should do a second one where we have I mean, we have like over 500 DTF users where we have someone that's submitting a DTF print, but I think even creating a very cool image with gradients and knockouts, and then actually providing. I don't know if you guys did this, but like every single color, basically we would give a Pantone, and then it's like everyone's got to try and get as close to possible as they can to even like the color matching, because that's a challenge too,
Hell yeah,
right? So that could be a pretty cool thing. Maybe
huge.
Zach, maybe you come up and be a maybe you be a judge in our January show. What do you think?
I love
Yeah,
Canada.
that'd be awesome.
Oh, and you like the feature of
Awesome.
my computers. Yeah, so oh no, I love Canada, man. Get me up there.
Cool. So one last. I know we touched quickly on like Print Masters Throwdown. Like we never really dived into it, but so what is that exactly that you're doing? You said it's a YouTube series, so like just dive into that a little bit because I think that's kind of cool. There's nothing like that in our industry.
Yeah, so it was I have a lot of crazy ideas and as you guys have heard and stuff, but I'm really big on just like let's do them, you know? One of my favorite quotes that Ryan actually told me from Steve Jobs is real art is shit. And like it took me like a day to understand that, but I get it and it's more so they get their shit out there or they just do things, right? So with that I was like, all right, we got to make things happen. But with the throwdown, it was kind of like always loved watching car building shows and the competitions as a kid and stuff. And I was like, why don't we have anything? They used to have the competitions at the trade shows. They got rid of all that stuff, which is no fun and stuff. And I was like, we need to create something cool like this. Like, how would we do it? And then it started with me and my homie, my brother Sanger. We're in LA. We had just finished the Arizona stop for the 7:30 live screen printing tour where we took the rock on the road. And we were sitting there like, dude, we need a boys weekend, like all the homies, like all the dope, like all these dope printers, just come hang out at the studio. And then like me being me, I'm like, wait a second, bro. Like we could turn this into something. And then sure enough, with like the help of everybody in the
Yeah.
industry for sponsors and then like the team and stuff, we brought it together. So at the end of August, we shot an 8 episode series at our studio in Boston. And basically, it's going to be the Print Masters Throwdown, which is like a version of Ink Masters and stuff like that, where it's competitions and people showing what skills they know and dealing with different challenges and stuff like that. Trust me, the first episode is like a ton of issues happen in the first one, specifically with my situation.
Sure.
So that's going to be funny in itself. But no, it was cool. We went through all different processes. So like first challenge was single color. We have multicolor, sim process, CMYK, discharge, water base, high density, puff printing, all this stuff. And our goal was to really get people involved with that. We have an early sign up if you want to see the episodes before we drop them, but really get people involved in that. And then bring it on the road. So we have a shop already lined up. I don't want to give out too much information, but we have a shop that we're going to be battling at their shop, which is going to be cool because we're bringing our team to face their team. And then we also have a virtual one that we're working on right now where it's our team at Self Made versus the Made Lab team and versus our good old friend Lee Stewart's team up in Canada. So it'll be a little US versus Canada action going on too on that. So,
Nice.
but that's going to
That's
be a
fun.
cool one. But basically, we wanted to give printers a platform to get back to like the art, the craft, and like the competition aspect, where it's not just like daunting production all the time. It's fun stuff, So we had ours where you had to select the presses for the different challenges. We had the M&R, the Rock, and then the Riley Hopkins manual. So you had to pick what press you wanted to use in the challenge, and we all battled. it's just something that a project that, I felt was a good timing. Recently, Ryan, and a few of us have got re-involved. We took over and bought out the screen printers page in the screen printer die brand. And our goal is to really revamp that and bring it up and provide more platforms for screen printers to get connected, educated, and get involved. So we looked at it as like, shoot, like the Print Masters Throwdown would be the perfect platform to, get onto screen printer die and get to the screen printers page as soon as we can. And like I said, get more people involved, because I think that's something too that, don't necessarily get as much credit. We hear about all the dope shops around the country, outside of the country, all that stuff. But like, when do we give homage back to the printers, And it's cool because it creates a lot of friendly competition. Like, I'm a big trash talker from Boston, so I love talking trash. So me and Lee talk trash all the time. Me and Ryan talk trash all the time. Now it's cool because we can open up the field to talk trash with a bunch of people. The shop that I can't necessarily mention, if you guys are involved in the social media industry, they're probably one of the most popular right now. So you'd probably get an idea of who I'm talking about and stuff like that. But all I'm saying
Yeah,
is that
yeah,
we're gonna
yeah.
crush
we,
them. So we're gonna
we,
crush
we,
them.
we had him on here. I don't know if you saw. We had him
Hey,
on here a
oh, I
couple
saw.
weeks ago.
That's all I had to do was this, and everybody knows.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he's got that trademark. But it's gonna be fun throwing down with them at their shop and stuff. But it's cool because like you're running into different challenges. You don't know what you're gonna deal with on the press. Like it was really cool going back to that skill aspect of yourself. Is like a good amount of the guys that came into the challenge were familiar with rock presses, right? But then when they got tossed on that M&R, it was like, holy crap. But then you have like one of my best friends and my buddies and partners with Self-Made, who has been with me for like over 11 years now, right? It's wild because like he was the one that showed me how to work on autos, and when we learned on M&R. So like this dude hops on and he's freaking crushing it on the M&R, he's crushing it on the manual, he's crushing it on the rock. Like he's given like a full breakdown of how to run the M&R while he's doing the CMYK process, and he's not gonna lie, he's probably like freaking 5 to 10 beers deep, and he's still doing it better than like anybody. We're like, holy crap, this could be a whole episode right here. So it just shows like the different skill ability that you have. So that's one of the things we're really trying to bring out. And then we want to do, like, we started talking to some of the other distributors and partners. We'd love to have one with you guys up in Canada, but basically have more individual ones. So if it's somebody that doesn't have like a full team at a shop, or their shop's not really like that and stuff, it gives them the ability where if they are passionate about being an artist or screen printing master, they can enter these individual contests where they can, potentially get on. We're trying to get it to the point where it's like, you could have like an RB Digital could have their own throwdown team, and these are their printers.
Yeah,
They're not all
yeah.
from the same shop, but these are the ones you guys selected to be on that team and stuff. So really just trying to bring it
That's
back,
good.
and bring unity. Like my big thing is, we were talking about roles in the industry, is like, I really feel like, that name Print Plugs is like something that I've always held close to my heart, where like my goal is to plug people together and connect people and plug people in a different situation. So creating this new platform with the Print Masters Throwdown is something that I'm really hoping to see. And it's really cool too because, obviously it's educational. You're going to learn a lot about why people did certain things within the challenge. You're going to learn a lot about why you should do certain things so you don't have a cluster F like I had in a lot of the shit.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then, but you're also going to get exposed to a lot of stuff. Like, the cool thing was the unity from a lot of the distributors and, companies within the industry that were more than willing to, like, supply us with stuff just to show the better product. I think that was one thing I went through when I first got into screen printing. I just didn't know. You don't know about all the products and stuff. So it was really cool to have like
Yeah.
companies like Ryonet, companies like PMI Tape, GSF, Vastex, our Rock, all these different companies, really coming together, Chromaline and like Avian, and being like, no, we want people to see this stuff because we want people to start thinking outside the box, especially with like the different things that you can accomplish. Avian was a great support in that, especially with my guy John McGee, Mr. Grumpy. And he was somebody that was like, we want people to see the different special effects we can get out of these inks so that they can push the envelope. If we're gonna have any fighting chance at showing people why screen printing is way better than DTF and DTG, it's gonna go back to
Need
these.
those.
Yeah, you need those things. You need the things that some of these printer machines with the DTG or the DTF can't do. and so I think the platform is really good to get people exposed. It's also a good aspect to show it doesn't matter how good you are, shit's gonna hit the fan. It's like it doesn't matter. It could be the
100%.
simplest job. It's funny because I think the single color competition challenge that we have, which is going to be the first episode, we rewatched the footage a million times, and it's like, holy crap, the simplest competition that you thought would just be a cakewalk, there was the most issues ever, like in this one. So it's going to be awesome. I'm super excited, and I'm super excited to get more people involved, and see people want to get into the challenges, talk some trash. I know there's some big shops too that we've already challenged, and they kindly declined. They were like, we are not getting exposed, and we are not getting down with this. So, but it's cool.
I think bringing that energy into the industry is what's needed, right? The industry needs it. The industry needs I think Ryan Moore did an amazing job, but he's been missing, right? We need something else. We need new energy coming in.
Yeah.
Same for me, right? I learned everything from him, and then I went to main lab. I took some courses, but the beginning
Hell
was
yeah.
all with Ryan, right?
Yeah.
That's
And
how I learned. So
yeah, and now we have the cool thing is like that's why it's awesome. Like I think Ryan set the wave where it's like, all right, he was one of the first people to get on it and stuff like that. But he's setting the wave too, where it's just like, the real reason or real way we grow the industry is by connecting in unity, not closing gates or being gatekeepers and stuff like that. So it's really cool to see all the people that are learning from what Ryan did and getting involved and putting stuff out there. And it's like whether it's yourself, myself, Lee, a bunch of these different other companies and stuff like that, and people, it's really cool to see.
100%. I think it's awesome what you guys are doing, and it's definitely brought a lot of creativity to the industry, and I mean opened eyes to a bunch of people of where it should be and where it's going to go, right? So
Hell yeah.
I think we all appreciate what you're doing and where you're bringing this for sure.
Thank you. Teamwork
This
makes
has
the
been
screens
fun,
work.
man.
Yes, it does. It has
Hey,
been
I
super
like
fun.
that. I'm going to
Super
use
fun.
that.
Yeah. That song I used to say teamwork makes the dream work, and then they came out with that song, and I was like, this has such a negative theme to it. I was like, we can't use this anymore. I was like, all right, well, when you think about it, the whole team makes the screens work. So teamwork makes the screen work, baby.
That's awesome.
Cool, man. Well, yeah, listen, I had a great time. I think that we should, offline touch base because I think you're working on some cool things. We're trying to work on some cool things. So I think there's some synergies. We could bang out some really cool projects together. So it was really nice spending time with you and getting to know you a little bit more. And thanks for everything that you do for the industry. All the shops that you help get up and running and dialed in.
Got it,
So
man.
it's, I had no
Appreciate you.
idea. I mean, look, I've seen you on social media for years, but I had no idea you were involved in all of this stuff. So it was really cool to learn a little bit more about you, man.
That's the can of corn, baby. You don't know what's going to find once you open up that can.
I like
Sweet.
it.
Sounds good. Awesome.
But thank
All
you
right.
guys.
Thanks,
Appreciate
everybody.
it. All right, I'll see you.
Thank you.